Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
If a flock gets infected, birds die very fast.
The spread of avian flu in BC and what it means for you.
So if I skip 1 or 2 meals, that's what I have to do.
Also, forced to decide between food and medication, how rising costs are hitting the most vulnerable.
I was just shocked and I was amazed.
And a BC teen makes history as the first female skater drafted to the Canadian Hockey League.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. The avian flu is sparking new concerns tonight among the province's food producers. It may be just a handful so far, but 2 of the affected farms are larger commercial operations. As Anita Bathe reports, Fraser Valley farmers are on edge.
At this farm, it's all hands on deck to keep these birds safe. Poultry farmers like Mark Siemens are facing a lot of uncertainty.
We're nervous. We've seen what it can do back in 2004, where we lost the entire industry here in the Fraser Valley.
Poultry farms like his are on a strict lockdown, doing whatever it takes to prevent the highly infectious bird flu from coming in.
Full disinfecting of all vehicles that come in or out, and change of clothes, showering in and out of the barns, and just making sure we do everything we can to keep our hens healthy.
Avian flu has arrived in Abbotsford, this time at a turkey farm, and that has Fraser Valley producers worried. The area is home to 80% of BC's poultry farms, and experts say the flu is a highly serious and infectious disease for birds.
It's like nothing else that you will see in your flock. Birds die very fast, and you will most likely lose your whole flock.
It's mainly being spread through feces and from infected migrating wild birds like geese. And from heat domes to floods to now a highly contagious virus, it's all taking a large toll on farmers.
Tired, we've been anxious, we've been dealing with those other things.
It's stressful, you know, it's just as a farmer, we just feel like we really need a break.
If a farm tests positive for the flu, experts say quarantines are set up.
Anything coming onto or off of a farm has to be let in by permit.
And then the flock is culled to prevent spread, or else the birds will die within days. And this time around, it's also a national concern.
This is the first time we've seen avian influenza in more than one province at a time.
But BC farmers say they're better prepared than the catastrophic avian flu damage in 2004.
We've been very, very cautious since then. We've learned a lot of lessons.
So far, experts say poultry and egg supply will not be affected, and food safety is not a concern. Under provincial orders, farmers with 100 or more birds must keep them indoors until June 13th. And farmers are hopeful it's just another hurdle they will get through. Anita Bathe, CBC News, Abbotsford.
And a bit more to tell you about this story. Just this afternoon, more avian flu was detected here in British Columbia, this time in a small poultry flock in Richmond. This is now the 10th detected outbreak. The virus is believed to have spread widely amongst wild bird populations. Okay, so we keep talking about how things are getting more expensive. Food, gas, you name it, pretty much everything, right? Tonight, Joel Ballard is finding out not everyone is feeling the pinch equally. The higher prices are forcing heartbreaking choices for those on income and disability assistance.
It's difficult for Shauna Milne to stand for long periods.
I managed to do all the dishes.
Her diabetes has caused neuropathy, losing sensation in her feet. Control of her hands is going as well. She hasn't been able to work for 5 years, and as the cost of living continues to soar, the single mother of 2 teenage boys has had to make difficult decisions.
Well, this year, we probably will not see fruit in this house for summer. Vegetables are going to be very few and far between.
She's plagued with depression, a sense of failure. Milne is waiting to be approved for disability, and she spends her entire income assistance on rent.
Then I go into my child tax benefits to pay the remaining of my rent, then my bills, because those have to come, then medications, because not all of our medications are covered, and then food. So if I skip 1 or 2 meals, that's what I have to do.
In BC, a single person on income assistance receives $935 a month, while a single person on disability receives just over $1,350.
The disability rates are not actually even at the bare minimum of what is required.
People living with disabilities have long called for an increase to income assistance, a preventative step.
It helps people to be more involved in their communities, have jobs, volunteer, and by not increasing the rates, they're going to create higher healthcare costs.
During the pandemic, the CERB benefits highlighted the income discrepancies.
To hear their government say, on the one hand, if you're able-bodied and forced in a situation where you can't be employed for a period of time, we think $2,000 is fair. But the amount that you get if you're on disability and going through all the hoops that you have to go through to get disability benefits, it's far lower than that.
For some, it was a slap in the face.
Disabled people are dying. People in poverty are dying. The government is not acting.
Milna feels like she's trapped in a never-ending cycle of poverty, barely treading water.
Come out to Surrey, Langley, Abbotsford, and see what these rents are doing to people, and to actually do something.
Until then, she says she will keep taking it one day at a time. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Surrey.
The discovery of a young Indigenous woman's body on the grounds of a Shaughnessy mansion has her family and others crying foul. Chelsea Poorman's death has been described by police as not suspicious, but her family is calling for more answers and pointing out problems in the case. Michelle Gassou walks us through the 24-year-old's final moments.
24-year-old Chelsea Poorman vanished from downtown Vancouver on September 6, 2020, after leaving a party. Her body was found 20 months later near a vacant mansion in Shaughnessy, one of Vancouver's most affluent neighborhoods. The cause of Chelsea's death isn't known, and police say it isn't considered suspicious. The Poorman family of the Coactus First Nation is raising questions about the police investigation into her disappearance. Here's what we know about what happened to Chelsea Poorman. On the night of September 6, 2020, Chelsea and her sister Paige had dinner downtown at the Belmont, then went to a party at 1278 Granville Street. After a fight with her sister in the apartment hallway, Chelsea left on her own. She later texted Paige saying she was meeting up with a new bae. Just before 1 a.m., Chelsea's cell phone pings for the last time, putting its location somewhere between Victory Square and Harbour Centre. When Chelsea didn't return home the next day, her mother Sheila filed a police report, and the family started their own search. She told police her daughter was vulnerable because of a physical disability and brain injury caused by a car accident years earlier. Chelsea walked with a limp and wore a leg brace and lifted shoe. 10 days later, Vancouver police put out a public notice saying Chelsea is missing. 2 months later, police tell Chelsea's family the case has been transferred to the homicide unit because she's been deemed a vulnerable person. At this point, the family also hires a private investigator to look into Chelsea's disappearance. 6 months into her disappearance, the Poorman family holds rallies and speaks to the media about Chelsea's case.
We just want Chelsea home. We want to know that she's okay. We want to know that, she's safe.
Months pass with no major update on the case. Then, in late April, a construction team enters the backyard of a large property at 1536 West 36th Avenue. They find Chelsea's body on the property under a blanket, but police don't immediately confirm that it's her. The owner of the house had been living outside of Canada for years. The property was locked off and surrounded by thick hedges. Neighbors say the police spent 3 days searching several properties on 36th Avenue. 2 weeks after Chelsea's body was discovered, the family is informed that she was found. Police tell media her death is not considered suspicious and that she likely died on the property the night she disappeared or shortly afterwards.
We do not believe that Chelsea was murdered. We don't believe that her death was caused by another person.
The Poorman family holds a memorial for Chelsea at the property on 36th.
My daughters and I want answers, but right now we're going to focus on taking what's left of her home.
Chelsea's mother says Chelsea's body was missing 3 fingers and part of her skull. police haven't released those details.
We're not going to sit by and let them say that it's not suspicious and there's no foul play.
In the days that follow, a number of organizations issue statements critical of how police handled the case. The family says they'll continue searching for answers about what happened to Chelsea that night in September.
And moving on to another story now, a 4-day inquest into the shooting death of a 26-year-old British Columbian, Chantal Moore, has wrapped up in New Brunswick. Moore, who hailed from the Clayoquot First Nation in this province, was killed by police during a wellness check in the summer of 2020. The CBC's Alexandra Silberman has more on the recommendations coming out of the inquest in hopes of saving lives in the future.
Chantal Moore's family says the inquest into her death will continue to weigh heavy. The 26-year-old, originally from British Columbia, was killed during a wellness check. 2 years later, a coroner's inquest heard testimony about the night a police officer shot her. Moore's family heard witnesses take the stand over 4 days in Fredericton. The testimony at times became too much to hear. Moore's mother, Martha Martin, had to leave the courtroom to collect herself. Among the most challenging was the testimony from Constable Jeremy Sun, the officer who shot Moore. He says he doesn't know how things changed so quickly. Sun testified one moment Moore was waking up, then seconds later approaching with a knife. The last witness was police expert Chris Butler. He says use of force was consistent with practices, but found issues with training. He and the jury recommended advanced first aid, known as combat care.
Police officers trained and equipped in CCC with tourniquets and combat dressings have saved people's lives.
The jury is also recommending training in situational awareness, crisis intervention, disengagement, and de-escalation. Moore's mother says she's pleased with the recommendations and plans to push for action.
Because having these inquiries are senseless. If we can find ways to prevent having people die on wellness checks, let's move towards doing them.
The jury also recommended police work to improve relationships with Indigenous communities, something Martin said should be a priority. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Fredericton.
Canada's Governor-General made her first official visit to BC since being sworn in last year, meeting with Premier John Horgan in Victoria today. Mary Simon's arrival was met with a 21-gun salute and a traditional First Nations welcome. Simon is Canada's first Indigenous Governor-General, and on Monday she'll join Cookpee Roseanne Casimir and others in Kamloops to pay their respects to the children found buried on the grounds of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School, as well as the school's survivors. Well, it's a huge feat for a 15-year-old girl from North Vancouver. She's made history with the help of the Vancouver Giants, who picked her in round 13 of the Western Hockey League's draft. Leanne Young brings us Chloe's trailblazing story.
Chloe Primerano isn't afraid of hard work.
I usually shoot like about 200 pucks, and then I do some stick handling like 20-30 minutes.
And the 15-year-old's hard work is paying off. She's made hockey history.
I got drafted to the WHL.
The Vancouver Giants picked her in the 13th round, making her the first female skater ever drafted into the Canadian Hockey League.
My mom was driving me home from school, and I just saw on my phone, and I was just shocked, and I was like amazed.
She and her family had heard rumors she might be drafted.
It's hard to believe that someone's going to pull the trigger on something like that. Even though, in our opinion, she deserved it. And obviously, we believe that if she was a boy, that she would have been picked long before then.
Primerano started hockey at the age of 3. She grew to love the competitive nature of the game. Those who have coached her say she was destined for it.
She's one of those that wants to be, the first one on the ice and the last one off. But that being said, she makes everybody around her better.
Only female goalies have preceded Primerano in the CHL.
You received the news from the Giants. You have been drafted by the Western Hockey League.
She's now generating buzz across the hockey world.
For her to be able to get drafted is huge for women's hockey, and I'm super pumped for her and to see what kind of things that she does in the future.
As a 13th round draft pick, Primerano says she knows it's unlikely she'll end up playing for the Giants, but teammates have been welcoming. So has the team's part owner, singer Michael Bublé.
He just called me to congratulate me, and it's really, really crazy.
This historic moment isn't lost on the teen.
It means everything, like just be an inspiration to young girls as well, like show them that they can do anything if they work hard for it. That was gold.
Her ultimate goal, an Olympic gold medal for Team Canada. Leanne Young, CBC News, North Vancouver.
Awesome stuff. Way to go. Okay, it's finally the long weekend, and that means filled campsites, border waits, and ferry lines. So long, you may just want to pack a snack. As our Premji explains, there's also an unexpected surprise.
Bike rides, camping, and spending time outdoors in, dare we say it, sunshine. Sun hasn't dominated a May-long weekend forecast since 2017. 5 years later, and Environment Canada says there's no wet weather in the forecast for most parts of the South Coast this long weekend. Welcome news for campers.
Glad it cleared up for us.
This year, the campsites, many completely sold out, are filled with a very specific theme for most.
We want to come closer together.
It's just something to get together and actually spend time together away from everything else.
It's just an opportunity for us to spend time together as family.
And for the Galichin family, the long weekend is also a chance to commemorate a loved one.
Our grandpa died of cancer a few years ago, so this is also another reason why we're out here. Hopefully the whole family's going to come out.
You feel like you're in a setting that he cherished the most, right? So it's it's very special.
Yeah, I know.
Now, to get a spot was easy for some.
Once she was in, it was pretty quick and easy, so yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal.
But not so much for others.
7,000 or something in line for getting in. I was at work. I logged in. I think I was 13,000th in line.
Definitely stressful trying to get all of us logged on different computers, trying to basically secure a spot.
And they did. The province says the new BC Parks reservation website opened March 21st and in 2 months has seen more than 102,000 campsite bookings already.
Now, for many people who did manage to secure a May-long weekend spot, they do have some advice for you if you're planning to camp out for the upcoming weekends.
Go as soon as you can. Like, do the 2 months and go as soon as you can. Get on there.
Good luck on that. It's a total crapshoot, and just be happy to get something somewhere and enjoy it as best you can.
And when you pack that tent, tarp, and soccer ball, don't forget to pack that patience too, as lineups swarm to get in and out of the sites this sunny long weekend. Zara Premji, CBC News, Porto Cove.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going camping this weekend, but I gotta say, even seeing that sunshine on your face right now is pretty nice, Joe.
Yes. Let this be the advertisement for outdoor activities and dog rolling activities over the next few days. It is glorious, and it's only going to get warmer. This is by far the longest, sunniest, and warmest stretch of weather we've had this season. Let me show you what the temperatures look like out there. We're already into the mid-teens for parts of the South Coast. Now, we are tracking a few thunderstorms that slid down across Abbotsford, Mission, and Chilliwack earlier this evening. Those beautiful cumulus we're watching from Metro Vancouver are opening up for the valley. So keep an eye on that over the next couple of hours. But temperatures will be climbing and the atmosphere will be calming down over the next couple of days. Those thunderstorms also firing up in the southern interior. We're going to watch for that risk again tomorrow afternoon. But overall, this high pressure building off our coast is really going to make for a nice couple of days for most of British Columbia. So just a sneak peek into tomorrow afternoon, you can see those green cells bubbling up. Those are the interior thunderstorms, but I think we'll stay dry in through the South Coast. And in fact, mainly blue skies. As we head into Sunday, some increasing clouds. But Anita, it's the temperatures that will also be possibly reaching some records over the next week. I'll tell you more about that coming up.
That sounds great to me. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, it's the unfortunate reality for about 1 million people in our province, a need for family doctors with not nearly enough to go around. The shortage is getting so bad, rallies are being held demanding the province take steps to fix what's going on. It's estimated that roughly 1 in 5 British Columbians have no family doctor, with even more losing theirs to retirement. But while the shortage has a slew of negative health outcomes for patients, it's just as hard on those family doctors who are doing business. Dr. Christy Hurling is one of them. She's one of the physicians at West Coast Family Medical Clinic in Souk on Vancouver Island and joins us now. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Doctor, I know this is a complex issue, but one of the biggest problems in the shortage is compensation. How does the province's approach to paying doctors factor into it?
Unfortunately, the way that the system is set up currently, doctors are only paid a small fee when they see a patient. And this is the same whether you're spending 10 minutes with a patient or whether you spend an hour. It also doesn't take into consideration the fact that there's a lot of paperwork now that comes out of any visit. So you might see a patient for half an hour and deal with a complex series of issues, and then end up doing paperwork for another 20 minutes or half an hour for that one visit. And that time is not compensated. So you're paid the same whether you see a patient for the 10 minutes or an hour and a half.
So what's the solution? What's a better way to pay family doctors so they feel that it's fair and worth it?
Yeah, I think that the easiest and quickest way to deal with the problem right now would be to compensate for the time that we spend. So just doing time-based fee for service, which is basically the same system that we have, but actually taking that time into consideration. I think that would be the best way to move forward now. And this would mean that you're able to add, the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour that you spend with the patient, and then the paperwork afterwards, so that you're really able to give the patient the time that they need. And I think that British Columbians really deserve.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing all of this because I think people assume that, if you're a doctor, you get paid really well. So to hear that doctors are doing all this extra work and not getting compensated, it makes sense now what's going on. So beyond patients seeing doctors for longer if they need to and getting more time with them, how else do patients and taxpayers in BC benefit from a change?
Mm-hmm. So right now we have patients who are ending up in the emergency room with their severe illness and getting their diagnosis there. These are people who, if they had a family doctor, they would likely have been picked up, months, even a year or two earlier sometimes. And this means that people are sicker when they present. They are going into the emergency room, which is a really, not a good place to be when you're not feeling well. It costs the system a great deal more, just orders of magnitude more to go to the emergency room than to see your family doctor. And often these people end up in a hospital bed. Plus, we're talking about people that are sicker at diagnosis, so they'll likely require more care. And sometimes, unfortunately, these are people that are past the point when a difference can be made. We also know that by adding family doctors to the system, not only does it save money, but the population becomes healthier and we see fewer deaths.
Dr. Christy Hurling, thank you.
Thank you.
As we celebrate Asian Heritage Month, we touch base with a photographer working out of a Chinatown studio, why she made the historic neighborhood her place of work. Next.
retinal disorders. Some eyes you can get lost in. Where am I? These have found 2 pairs of glasses for $149. Oh, hello. When your eyes get the care they need, that's Specsavers love.
Electro Recycle recycles more than 400 types of small appliances and power tools at over 200 locations across British Columbia, giving new life to your old electrical items. Electro Recycle, new life for an old friend.
Introducing the all-new Infiniti QX60. Take on life in style.
May is Asian Heritage Month, and to commemorate the occasion, we are highlighting the meaningful contributions of Asian Canadians and what they're doing for our community. Tonight, the CBC's Michelle Elliott profiles Eileen Choi, who has turned her personal passion into a full-time career as a sought-after wedding photographer.
I'm really proud to have my studio here, and also being an Asian Canadian, I think it was the perfect combination. Yeah, I think it's really important to show representation in our industry, not only for the wedding vendors to feel they have a space there, but also for our clients to feel welcomed and included.
Hi. Hi. I'm Michelle.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. Come on in. And I'll get you to sit forward just a tiny bit. And just having your hands like that. Beautiful, just like that.
You're really good at directing.
Oh, thank you. I make that the priority, because I feel like if you don't know what you're doing, you naturally kind of feel awkward.
Yeah.
And that's, really translates over the photo. So just try to make people comfortable. That's the top priority, and then everything else will come.
A lot goes into making a single picture, and photographer Eileen Choi looks at every little detail.
So I mainly do wedding photography. That's what I started with, and then I really enjoy connecting with people and just really photographing all of their life's milestones. And it is a big honor when wedding couples end up having a baby, and then they get me to kind of do all of those events for them, and I get to see how they grow.
Working as a creative in Vancouver isn't easy. And in 2020, during the pandemic, Eileen took a big risk. She opened a photo studio in Chinatown. She wanted to expand her business and branch out into product photography.
Being a freelancer in general, it's definitely very unpredictable. You just never really know if you're gonna get a full season of work, and there definitely are times where it's really scary, because I'm oh my gosh, I haven't booked anything, but then it always ends up working out, and it has really taught me to trust the process and just be okay with the highs and lows. You've had these before, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So good.
So let's talk about these delicious treats that we just got. What are they?
So these are the sticky pancakes, I guess. I feel like I know what it is in Chinese, but it's filled with red bean, which I love.
Tell me about why it was important for you to locate your business here in Chinatown.
Yeah, I think it honestly was a happy coincidence. I've honestly never explored Chinatown, and having my studio here now is a very great opportunity for me to explore the area.
What do you remember of when you and your family came to Canada?
I was really young. I was 3 years old, so I don't really remember too much.
Like so many others, Eileen and her family immigrated to Canada in 1997, following the British handover of Hong Kong to China.
What was it like for you growing up here?
I feel like it was very natural. I definitely feel like I was almost born here, especially because I did grow up here. I did grow up in a suburb of it, but there was also a lot of Asian, especially Chinese people there. So I definitely feel like I was part of a community still, and didn't really feel too much of an odd one out.
What did your parents do when you were growing up?
My parents actually did a lot of different things. My mom was a house cleaner for a little while, and then she worked at a bakery, and then my dad also was a clerk at a store. As I get older, I'm really appreciating all that they've sacrificed for us. I know that they had some good jobs in Hong Kong, and then when they came here, it was a little bit hard to find their footings. Growing up, I honestly kind of felt like there wasn't a lot of representation, just in terms of the media, and yeah, I feel like that's something that's important to me that I value, and I am proud of my heritage, so I want that to be represented in my business.
And how do you think it feels for the Asian community to see themselves reflected?
I mean, I would hope they would feel empowered, because I definitely feel that way when I see representation of someone who looks like me or someone who has a similar background, and it's really amazing to see that we are trending in that direction. There's still obviously a lot of work to do, but yeah, I would like to try to be a part of that.
Hello and welcome to Hot Air, BC's jazz show since 1947, which means it's our 75th birthday next.
For 75 years, it's been a jazz institution here in BC and the oldest radio show in the country. Hot Air is practically a senior citizen of radio, but it's showing no sign of slowing down anytime soon. And tonight, we are celebrating. With me now is the host of Hot Air, Margaret Gallagher. Margaret, how does it feel to host such an institution and see it reach a milestone like this?
It is a really incredible feeling. You know, this show has such a history going back to 1947 with the founding host, Bob Smith, who hosted the show for 35 years, fueled by his absolute passion for jazz. He used to bring in his own records. He had over 4,000, even in 1950. And I became the host in 2010. And it's just wonderful to be part of this jazz community that is constantly growing and supporting each other. And as you say, there's a huge history and people love the music. So it's great to be part of it.
Absolutely. I love jazz every time I hear it. And as I was telling you, I don't know enough about it. So I think I need to listen to Hot Air even more. Can you talk about why jazz does matter?
Well, jazz is a really big tent. You know, some people will say, oh, I don't know if I really like jazz, but then they hear some music, which is jazz, and they realize that they like it. It is a global art form. There's jazz in all parts of the world. It's about improvisation. It's about discovery. It's multi-generational. You get musicians from different generations playing together. It's been at the forefront of a lot of social change, and it's also been at the root of hip-hop, and that is very current today. So, you know, if you think you don't like jazz, you probably do like some jazz. There's just a lot to choose from. And BC has an incredible jazz community as well. Lots of international stars, from Diana Krall to Michael Bublé, but of course many, many others that we don't have time to get into now. But if you listen to Hot Air, you will definitely hear about them.
I think that is the plan for me and for hopefully our viewers. Margaret Gallagher is the host of Hot Air. Thank you so much and congratulations on this milestone.
Thank you so much, Anita.
Long unknown outside of Africa, monkeypox has gained a foothold first in Europe and now here in Canada. Why the virus is spreading and what it does, that's next. The number of monkeypox cases in Canada is growing. At least 5 are now confirmed, and more are still under investigation. The virus is usually confined to Central and Western Africa, but Europe, Australia, and the U.S. are all now seeing cases as well. Lauren Pelly lays out what Canada's public health officials say we need to know.
I would say generally that the entire population is susceptible to this to monkeypox.
Federal officials say roughly 24 suspected infections are now under investigation.
We need to learn more about it. You know, has it evolved? Has it changed to something different in terms of the mode of transmission and so on?
Officials expect there will be more confirmed cases from Canada's National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg, where patient samples are being tested.
There's probably been some hidden chains of transmission that could have occurred for quite a number of weeks, given the sort of global situation that we're seeing right now.
Thought to be like a milder form of the smallpox virus, monkeypox doesn't usually spread outside of Africa. More than 500 cases have been reported in Nigeria since 2017, including a handful of deaths. Scientists there warn cross-protection from the smallpox vaccines offered decades ago has long since faded away.
The longer we are away from smallpox vaccine, the more the likelihood that monkeypox will then begin to spread. We've been saying that for quite some time. I think now our fears are being confirmed.
In Africa, outbreaks of monkeypox typically ebb and flow, says this Nigerian virologist.
We don't see rapid transmission like you see with COVID, for example. But also, it dies down almost within a few months. After 1 or 2 generations of spread, it kind of dies down. And then suddenly it pops up again.
With an unusual number of cases being reported all at once in countries around the world, the path for this outbreak isn't yet clear. What's reassuring so far, physicians say, is that patients do seem to be recovering.
It really does look like the great majority of people are not having severe or complicated disease.
After weeks of chaotic artillery and trench warfare in Ukraine's east, Russia is reportedly intensifying its assault with dire consequences. According to the UN, hundreds of thousands are reportedly said to be stranded without electricity or running water. And as Briar Stewart shows us, right now, for some, escape is impossible.
In this video, the latest wave of Ukrainian fighters from Mariupol are brought to the site of a former penal colony. Russia says around 2,000 have surrendered from the Azovstal steel plant and that it's now liberated. Those claims haven't been confirmed. The wives and mothers of some fighters continue to plead for help from the international community.
My husband is on the way from one hell to another hell.
The fate of those who are now prisoners of war is uncertain, and so is the future of Ukraine's Donbas region. Russian forces ramped up their assault, taking aim at one of the last territories held by Ukraine in Luhansk. Ukraine's national police released this video of people being evacuated from Severodonetsk, an area where they say 12 were killed on Thursday. The Russian military is completely destroying the area, says Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. It's hell there, and it's not an exaggeration. Ukrainian officials say a Russian missile hit a cultural center Friday just to the west of the Donbas. They say there were 7 victims, including a child. Even in areas like Kharkiv, where Ukraine has managed to push the Russians away from the city, the sounds of artillery are still frequently heard. This man's apartment was hit during shelling. Well, I'm not suffering that much, but others have been killed, he said, and that will never be forgiven. How can we forgive them? Well, the attacks are intensifying in the east. To the south of where I am, Russia already controls a large swath of Ukraine's southern coast. It's difficult to get an accurate picture of life in the occupied territories, but there are reports that Russia is bringing in its own currency and making plans to hold referendums to call for Russia to annex the regions. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Dnipro, Ukraine.
And that war in Ukraine is heading into its 4th month, and finance ministers from the G7 countries are offering more support. They've agreed to provide nearly $20 billion US in financial aid to keep the Ukrainian government running during the crisis. Canada's finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, who's in Germany for the G7 meeting, says the funding is critical to ensure Ukraine has the support it needs to win. Freeland also announced a separate loan of $250 million through the International Monetary Fund. You are looking at a live shot of Penticton tonight at 6:42. A bit of cloud there, but it's warming up in the interior. Here too, Johanna has the full long weekend forecast next. Stunned residents of a Michigan town are taking stock tonight after a tornado ripped through this afternoon, sending people running for their lives. At least one person has been killed and 23 are hurt. Chris Reyes shows us the extensive damage that's been left behind.
It's an actual tornado. Hey, video it.
I can't, but we're about to get ran over by it.
Chaos in a northern Michigan town as a dangerous, rare, and deadly tornado touched down Friday afternoon.
Can you hear that thing out my window?
It ripped the roofs off buildings and threw debris across roads and parking lots. Trees and power lines were torn down, cutting electricity and blocking roads. It happened in Gaylord, home to about 4,000 people, about 180 kilometers south of the Canadian border. Twisters here are unusual.
We do see tornadoes around the Great Lakes, but it's not typically what we would consider Tornado Alley. You know, we get many more tornadoes in the deep south. The Great Lakes do get them, but they're not as common because the Great Lakes often moderate the temperatures.
There's an upside down Silverado like over.
Eyewitness video posted on social media showed the extensive damage caused by the tornado. One person describing the sky turning black moments before it touched down. The city of Gaylord has imposed a curfew that will be lifted tomorrow morning. Emergency crews asked that residents shelter in place overnight. So far, the weather system is not expected to move north to Canada.
So these big supercells that were forming on the west side of the Great Lakes that spawned that tornado, they crossed the Great Lakes, but the cooler waters really fizzled them out.
Severe thunderstorm watches and warnings remain in effect throughout northern Michigan. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Scary stuff, and thanks for that context there, Joe. But I do want to talk about here in BC, we're seeing warmer temperatures. Is that a concern for our snow melt?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially considering we are now well above average for most of the province when it comes to our snowpack for this time of the year. It's really just the Okanagan that is slightly below. We're now looking at numbers between 200 and 300% of normal. And any day now, we should get the latest official update. But obviously, that's concerning for a spring melt. The good news with this warm up, it is a reasonable pace. So not expected to see dramatic melt over this weekend. It is the kind of pace we want. Let me show you what we're looking at as far as temperatures across the country. We are seeing that warm up in the west, but that cold front that actually spawned the winds that we saw on Wednesday, that's part of what is morphed, and it is now slicing into the Great Lakes and spawned that tornado in Michigan. Something else I want to talk about on the East Coast, big warm up coming for about 100 million Americans this weekend. Temperatures will get into the mid 30s over the next couple of days. This could be the hottest May ever on record for many communities, places like Boston hitting 36 degrees on Sunday, and that will be the hottest May ever reported out there. And I should mention that scenario extremely unlikely without the additional heat from climate change. Just wanted to give you a snapshot of where those storms are. We've been tracking, made the lightning strikes huge. They're just through north of Abbotsford. We're seeing those strikes, and it is still raining. Mission, Abbotsford, even out towards Chilliwack. So heads up, those storms are sliding south, but I know you've seen some continued downpours in the past couple of hours. 14 for Williams Lake tomorrow, 19 over towards Victoria. Slight risk of that thunderstorm in through Kelowna and the rest of the Okanagan, but sunshine for almost the whole province. 14 for Prince Rupert, and temperatures are climbing again as we head into the next couple of days. We're going to get into that heat that we're seeing on the west. There we go. Back to the forecast I wanted to give you. I've got the long range coming up. There we go. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine if I couldn't get to the one that we really wanted? And that is not the one. Hang on. This is very important. This is like you've got, the bases loaded. You need a home run, and I'm going to deliver it right about. It's coming. It's coming. You know what? Let's just say it's going to be brilliantly sunny over the next few days, Anita. I can't believe I can't get this 5-day forecast. But I can tell you that all you need to know is sunny icon right through to Thursday. I'm sorry I couldn't get it for you. It's like today, but better.
Well, Edmonton looks good too. Maybe some of us are taking a trip to Edmonton.
Thank you, Anita. I joked.
All right. Thanks, Joe. We know it's good.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Well, China is condemning Ottawa's ban on the use of Huawei and ZTE equipment in Canada's 5G telecom network. Beijing says it will take steps to safeguard the rights of Chinese companies. Our Prime Minister says Canada is prepared for any challenges. But as Catherine Cullen reports, Justin Trudeau is still facing questions about why it took so long to implement the ban.
We know that Chinese government officials are not happy with this decision, saying today that any talk of security risks, that those are, quote, trumped up. The suggestion by the Canadian government is that they are making this decision in order to protect the safety and security of Canadians, of their telecommunications network. They've been reluctant to be more specific about the risks, but we know from discussions within security agencies, discussions within allied countries, that the fear is that this technology would be used to spy on Canadians, despite the fact that Huawei is ostensibly a private company. The fear is that the Chinese government would use this to spy on citizens of countries like Canada. So China saying suggestion of security risk, that's trumped up, and that when it comes to the Chinese government response to this, that they are prepared to take, quote, all necessary measures to protect Chinese companies. Now, the Prime Minister said today, well, listen, if there is a challenge, for example, before the World Trade Organization, Canada understands that that might happen, but they still believe that this was the right decision to protect Canadians. But what about that question around timing? This is a decision that many allied countries made years ago. The process of actually getting Huawei technology out of Canada's telecommunications system, well, that is going to take years still. In the meantime, though, the government says it is intent on protecting Canada's telecommunications network, and in fact says it's going to introduce new legislation to try to do just that, and that is coming soon. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Start digging through the attic. This vintage fold-up is a hot item once again. Why? I'll tell you next.
Acme area farmer Brian Roger brings bags of baler twine to a collection site near Didsbury. He's been recycling plastic for years.
Anytime you can bring something in where you don't have to burn it or send it to the landfill, it's a big plus, and it helps out the environment, makes us as farmers be part of the situation where we can help save the environment.
The program is called Alberta Ag Plastic Recycle It. Stakeholders include commodity groups, municipalities, recyclers, retailers, and farmers. It received $115,000 for the one-year extension. Alberta Beef Producers administers funding and Clean Farms helps operate it. Officials say they've already collected about 1,700 tons of grain bags and 230 tons of baler twine at dozens of collection sites. Al Kemery is the APRG chair.
I just like the fact that we're giving agriculture another tool to continue on in their stewardship.
Taylor Schmidt with hay and grain exporters Bar Ag Limited says they also recycle twine through the project.
It's important to farmers, it's important to us, sustainability and farming, they go hand in hand.
The plastics are shipped to recycling facilities in Alberta and the U.S. Dave Gilson, CBC News, near Olds.
Compost is available for
having a great long weekend. So thanks so much for being with us on CBC Vancouver News. We will see you back here on Monday.